of Congress? How long is the path between a member of Congress and each other member of Congress, member of the same party? So with the traditional closeness measure, researchers take the average distance between two nodes, or the average distance for a node to all other nodes. But in a very sparse network, that becomes undefined, since some nodes can't be reached from any other node. So with the modified closeness measure, the D function is the distance between two nodes, and it's set at 0 for any two members that don't have a tie between them, or a path between them that links them through multiple ties across multiple nodes. So in this case, members that don't have any relationship get a 0. Members that are directly connected to each other get a 1, which gives us a measure overall that will vary from 0 to 1. A measure of 1 would imply that the member was directly connected to every other member of his or her party. And the exciting thing about our modified closeness measure is that the names of the folks, I can remember when we did this, we were like jumping for joy, like, we were just wrapping our heads around the network stuff. And the folks that we get with the highest modified closeness, they are pretty familiar names. Of course, that most of them are household. These are the top, most central Democrats in our data set, and for each election cycle. And of course, most recently you see the leaders from the 80s as well. The only name on the list that I didn't recognize, now maybe I am a Congress geek, so I'm supposed to recognize a good deal more of names than other folks, was Charlie Rose. I think of Charlie Rose and I think of a fairly boring, occasionally interesting interview show. But Charlie Rose was a member of Congress from North Carolina that challenged Dick Gephardt for minority leadership after the Democrats lost power in 1994. So everybody on the list is someone that is pretty recognizable as a central leader in the Democratic Party. Bless you. Am I supposed to not say that kind of stuff? So the next thing we did is we looked at this measure of centrality, this modified closeness, across leadership more generally compared to the rank and file. I hope it is clear in the back there, but the solid lines at the top are a lowest regression fit across all leaders over time. And what you can see in both parties, the leaders have a higher modified closeness score than the rank and file membership. Slightly different patterns across parties. The Democrats seem to be converging after being quite far apart. The Republicans seem to sort of maintain more or less the same pattern across leaders and the rank and file. Another interesting game I like to play is look at the individual career of a famous member of Congress. So here is Nancy Pelosi's career reduced to her modified closeness score. So what we see is the contributions that she has made to other members of Congress have pushed her over time towards the center of the Democrats' contribution network. And this is a different measure than if we were simply just counting the contributions. If we just counted the contributions that members of Congress make, that would be the out-degree score. And out-degree is correlated with modified closeness at a little bit less than 0.6. So they are measuring a similar thing, but they are certainly not exactly the same thing. Here is Steny Hoyer's career, one of my favorite names of any member of Congress. Hoyer's career, unsurprisingly, looks quite similar to that of Pelosi, as they both were ascending the leadership structure at the same time. Most interestingly, though, and importantly, Hoyer has a dip. In 1992, you can see that he has a fairly low score for modified closeness. So, being the good political scientist I am, wanting to explain the outliers, it turns out that that is the year that Hoyer faced his toughest re-election campaign and only received 53% of the vote, which explains sort of one of the weird things about this network. When I presented this at University of Wisconsin-Madison, David Cannon pointed out that this is a particularly undemocratic network. Not all members have equal access to money. Some need the money for their own re-election campaigns and might not be able to participate in this social network. Now, it seems to me that, again, that is an important feature. Not all members have access to equal access to resources. Others might not have equal opportunity to engage in party building. In any event, some members might have to sort of watch their own tuchus and not help others. Those folks are probably not going to be leadership material. They're not going to have the time and attention necessary to help lead the party. Yes?
So I'm just, so the contribution stuff is a little out of my area. I know a little bit about the social network stuff, so I just need a bit of a real world interpretation. Because the closeness measure, so when it's a social tie, like a truly social tie, in the sense that I talk to somebody, and we sort of friends or friends of friends, I sort of get how that works in terms of a closeness measure. But if I give Jen $10, who then gives you $5, does that make me, how does that make me closer to you? So how does that closeness measure actually mean something in terms of contributions?
We want to be pretty fuzzy on our interpretation of this, sort of for obvious reasons, because it is way more awkward than some of the other social networks we look at. But we think it does imply a relationship that flows from you to me through Jen. So to the extent that you needed a vote of mine on some issue, this is a social network rooted in exchange. So you would then be able to go to Jen, pressure Jen for Jen's vote, and presumably pressure Jen to be able to pressure my vote. And again, at a lesser degree than if you had contributed directly to Jen. Now, in particular, while we might not think this is super useful for regular roll call votes, we do think that it is useful for being able to predict those members of Congress who are able to rise through the leadership ranks. I don't want to make a strong statement and say, you can get a vote on the healthcare bill because you gave to Jen and Jen gave to me, but I do think it suggests an ability to wrangle support as one rises through the leadership ranks. Other questions? All right. So, again, being good congressional scholars, we cannot go too many slides without getting to some sort of roll call vote-based measure of ideology. And so when we compare our modified closeness score to the common space scores from DW Nominate, what we find is those members that are most central in the party that have the highest modified closeness scores. So this is sort of interesting. More moderate members seem to be more central in the contribution network. Well, I think this is an interesting finding, and I could probably do a bunch of post hoc theorizing about this. I don't want to press this too hard. I mean, a lot of this project is quite descriptive, and we wanted to know what the network looked like. And this is the finding, and interestingly enough, we see a very similar pattern in the Senate. So here are members of the Senate, and again, those members that are more towards the middle of the party seem to be the ones that have the highest modified closeness scores. So ultimately, we need to have some bit of traditional hypothesis testing in our research, or else people probably get mad at us. So we want to sort of replicate a study by Heberling, Larson, and Hetherington about movements up the leadership ladder in Congress. So there is a sort of hierarchy with Speaker on the top, majority, minority leader, minority, majority whip, party committee chair, party committee vice chair, sub-chair, co-chair, and so on. And so we want to look at advancements up this ladder. So we take the DV to be a change in position in the leadership structure, either getting onto the leadership ladder